I think we can learn a lot when things go wrong. And if we look at relationships and why they go wrong, and look at how businesses collapse and so on, I think we can learn a lot about how to improve relationships. So let me give you one or two examples. I read the book recently, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. Let me tell you what happens to save you reading it. It's tough at the beginning. And then, as my mother would say, they go conquering. And they conquer and conquer and conquer for the best part of 500 years. And as long as they are working together in unison and have a common plan, they're successful. But then the three things that happened to all relationships and all businesses begin to happen. They become greedy, they become complacent, and infighting starts. And in 456 AD, when the Visigoth troop visit Rome, then the whole thing collapses. It is the most natural thing about hard work at the beginning, grow and develop, and then collapsing. Take the Beatles, for example. The Beatles' remarkable impact on popular music. In 1962, they had their first hit, Love Me Do. They actually sacked their drummer, Pete Best, 3 weeks before they had their first hit, Love Me Do. It wasn't a #1 hit, and replaced him with Ringo. Ringo was a phenomenon. Paul McCartney was once asked, is Ringo the best drummer in the world? And he said, Ringo isn't the best drummer in the Beatles. And the Beatles went on in 1963 to have 5 consecutive #1 hits, From Me to You, She Loves You, Please Please Me, I Want to Hold Your Hand, Help, and so on. 5 consecutive #1 hits. Almost no band or artist has ever had 5 consecutive #1 hits. But what happened with the Beatles is, although they had their first hit in 63, they played their last live performance in 1966. And in fact, it was only 3 years from the first #1 hit to their last live performance. The whole thing collapsed early in 1971. Why? It was actually about relationships. John Lennon and McCartney fell out once Brian Epstein died as to who should be responsible for the finances. And Paul McCartney appointed his brother-in-law, Lee Eastman, effectively to be financial director. John Lennon appointed Alan Klein. And you had this infighting. And that's why the Beatles collapsed. The same thing happened to the Titanic. In the Titanic story, J. Bruce Ismay is chairman and managing director of the White Star Line. And his very good friend, Henry Wilde, is chief officer on the Olympic, which is the sister ship to the Titanic, and asks J. Bruce Ismay if he can be chief officer on the Titanic, which he thought was the biggest ship that was ever going to sail. Now, you may remember Edward Smith. He was the captain of the Titanic. So Charles Lightoller was the chief officer, and Henry Wilde comes in the day before it sets sail and replaces Charles Lightoller. So Charles Lightoller is demoted to first officer. The first officer, William Murdoch, is demoted to second officer, and the second officer, David Blair, is thought too senior to be demoted to third officer, so was asked to leave the ship and took with him the key to the lookout where the glasses, binoculars, were kept. And on April 14th, Fred Fleet, at 11:40 p.m, was on the lookout, and he didn't have binoculars. They were known as glasses in those days. And he made it off the ship, and he was one of the survivors. And in the British Board of Inquiry in June of that year, Fred Fleet was asked if he was on the lookout looking for icebergs. Yes, I was, sir, he said. Did you have glasses? Did you have binoculars? No, I did not, sir. Why not? Because, sir, the key had been taken away by David Blair. Well, why did you not ask someone else for binoculars? Because he said, sir, everyone had fallen out. It's actually about relationships. So if you look at the Roman Empire, you look at the Beatles, you look at so many different stories, it's about relationships and how instead of working together, then people begin to start infighting. So here's the #1 top tip for ensuring that this doesn't happen. And the #1 top tip is a question. The question is this: is there any aspect of what I do that I can improve on? Or is there any aspect of our service we could improve on? Ask this question so that you don't get the hubris and complacency that usually evades all relationships.